with the first question. Your company recently created an Azure subscription. You have been tasked with making sure that a specified user is able to implement Azure AD Privileged Identity Management. Which of the following is the role you should assign to the user? So the underlying terms here is implement Azure AD Privileged Identity Management, PIM. So for question 2, the question is including a number of questions that depicts the identical setup. However, every question has a distinctive result. So to establish if the solution satisfies the requirements, it's upon you to understand what the question needs. So we are going to either give a yes or no answer after doing a deep dive of what the question intends you to understand. So the question reads, your company has an Active Directory forest with a single domain named waylandindustries.com. They also have an Azure Active Directory Azure AD tenant with the same name. You have been tasked with integrating Active Directory and the Azure AD tenant. You intend to deploy Azure AD Connect. Your Microsoft strategy for the integration must make sure that password policies and user logon limitations affect user accounts that are synced to the Azure AD tenant, and that the amount of necessary servers are reduced. So, solution that is being provided, you recommend the use of password through authentication and seamless single sign-on with password hash synchronization. So the question is, let me just reread the question again. Your company has an Active Directory forest with a single domain named waylandindustry.com. They also have an Azure Active Directory Azure AD tenant with the same name. You have been tasked with integrating Active Directory and the Azure AD tenant. You intend to deploy Azure AD Connect, as we've seen. Your strategy for the integration must make sure that the password policies and user logon limitation affect user accounts that are synced to the Azure AD tenant, and that the amount of necessary servers are reduced. Solution that has been provided or suggested is you recommend the use of password hash synchronization and seamless single sign-on. So, what do you think is the answer before I provide the answer? Correct. If you say the answer is A, then you are correct, because in this regard, it's addressing the need of the question where they're saying you need to reduce the amount of necessary servers that are needed. With password hash synchronization, we don't need to install any agent on the on-premises servers. The password hash synchronization happens in a way that the hash of the password hash are stored on the Azure AD side, and so there's also that seamless single sign-on that you also get to choose when you're implementing Azure AD Connect, and so you don't have a lot of overhead when implementing this sort of authentication scenario. So the answer here is choice A, yes. Let's proceed to the next question 4. Now, the next question here is going to address our second topic for the AZ-500 exam, that is the secure networking. So the question 4 reads, you have an Azure subscription that contains a storage account named Storage1 and a virtual machine named VM1. VM1 is connected to a virtual network named VNet1 that contains one subnet and uses Azure DNS. You need to ensure that VM1 connects to Storage1 by using a private IP address. The solution must minimize administrative effort. What should you do? You need to deploy an Azure Virtual WAN to meet the following requirements. Create 3 secured virtual hubs located in East US, West US, and North Europe Azure regions. Ensure that the security rules sync between the region. What should you use? So we have Azure Virtual Network Manager, Azure Front Door. Hello Azure enthusiasts. Welcome back to our channel where we dive deep into the world of cloud technology. Today we have something very special in store for you, an in-depth review of Azure 500 exam, focusing on Azure security. So whether you are gearing up for the exam or just looking to strengthen your Azure security knowledge, you are in the right place. So I am Jackton, your guide through this exciting journey. The AZ-500 exam is a cornerstone for anyone aiming to demonstrate their expertise in securing Azure environment. So in this tutorial, we'll be tackling a series of carefully curated review questions that cover key topics tested in the exam. But here's the twist. We won't just be giving you the answers. Instead, we will break down each question, explore the underlying concepts, and provide practical insights that go beyond the exam. It's not just about passing the test, it's about truly understanding Azure security to excel in real-world scenarios. Before we jump into the questions, let's quickly highlight the importance of mastering Azure security. So, as organizations increasingly embrace the cloud, the need for robust security measures becomes paramount. The AZ-500 exam equips you with the skills, design and implement secure solutions within the Azure platform, making you an invaluable asset to any cloud-centric team. So whether you are an aspiring Azure professional or seasoned cloud architect looking to stay ahead of the game, join us on this comprehensive journey. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's embark on a deep dive into the world of Azure security with our AZ-500 exam review questions. First and foremost, who are we? We are 591 Lab and our site is 591lab.com, pronounced as 591 Lab. 591 Lab is the top IT training and certification exam brand in China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Singapore. Our mission at 591 Lab is to provide our clients with exceptional exam preparation experience for certifications in Cisco, Huawei, Aruba, Juniper, Microsoft, and other certification tracks. So, without further ado, let's jump to the world of AZ-500 and explore the ins and outs of the Azure Security Administration. But first, let's check on the agenda. So, agenda for this AZ-500 exam is divided into two categories. First, we'll be dealing with the part one of this AZ-500, which will cover the two topics. One, manage identity and access, which contributes 20 to 35% of the exam question. And two, secure networking, which contributes 20 to 25% of the exam question. Later on in our part 2 video, we'll produce the other two remaining topics, which are secure compute storage and database and manage security operations. That will come in part 2. So let's begin with the first question. Your company recently created an Azure subscription. You have been tasked with making sure that a specified user is able to implement Azure AD Privileged Identity Management. Which of the following is the role you should assign to the user? So the underlying terms here is implement Azure AD Privileged Identity Management, PIM. So choice A is Global Administrator role, B Security Administrator role, C Password Administrator role, D Compliance Administrator role. So let's first of all try to understand what are the different capabilities of these particular roles before we delve into the exact role that is needed for the PIM. So you might be asking yourself, what is a PIM? So understandably, PIM is what we call the privileged identity management, and it is used to manage, control, and monitor access within your Microsoft Azure organization. With PIM, you can provide as needed and just in time access to Azure resources. So Microsoft Azure resources, previously Azure AD resources, and other Microsoft online services like Microsoft 365 or Microsoft Intune, these you can get to give access with the privileged identity management. So I will go to the Azure portal and show you how the privilege identity management, how you can get to activate it and all that. So a prerequisite. So as I go, let me navigate. Oh. So within the Azure portal, I go to privilege identity management. So within the privilege identity management, one of the requirements is that you need to have a P2 license, Microsoft Azure AD P2 license. That is a requirement. So what happens is that when a user who is active in privileged role in Microsoft Entra organization with a premium P2 license goes to roles and administrators, the way we've navigated in Microsoft Entra ID and select a role or even just privilege identity management. So as a result, we automatically enable PIM for the organization. And secondly, their experience is now that they can either assign a regular role assignment or an eligible role assignment. So when PIM is enabled, it doesn't have any other effect on your organization that they need to worry about. It gives you additional assignment options such as active versus eligible with the start and end time. So PIM also enables you to define scope for role assignments using administrative units and custom roles. So if you're a global administrator or a privileged role administrator, you might start getting a few additional emails like the PIM Weekly Digest. You might also see Microsoft PIM Service Principle in the audit logs. But essentially, as you can see, from the management of PIM, you need to have P2 licenses, and for you to enable it, you have to have the global administrator role. So on our question, we saw different roles. So what are the capabilities of these particular roles? So first and foremost, we have the global administrator role. So let me go back to the question. We have the global administrator role. So global administrator role have the highest level of access in Azure Active Directory or Azure AD and Microsoft 365. Their permission extend across all Azure services and administrative features associated with the Azure AD tenant. So what are the responsibilities of a user having global administrator role? The responsibilities are they can manage user accounts, reset password, configure settings, and perform tasks related to Azure AD and Microsoft 365 services. These are in addition to enabling privilege identity management, Azure AD PIM. So another role here, we have the security administrator role. So what is the scope? The scope for the security administrator role is focused on Azure AD and are responsible for implementing, managing, and monitoring security measures to protect the Azure AD environment. So from that particular scope, that disqualifies that particular role from this question, because the security administrator role is solely its work is only to administer security policies within Azure AD tenant. So the responsibility here for the security administrator role is to manage security related settings, review, respond, and to security alerts and configure those security policies. Another role here is the password administrator role. So the scope of the password administrator role is to help manage password related tasks Azure AD. From that definition alone, that disqualifies choice C as the answer, because that role is only work is to manage passwords related tasks in Azure AD. The last role we are seeing here is the compliance administrator role. The compliance administrator role focuses on implementing and managing compliance related features and controls in Azure AD. So from that definition alone, within that particular scope covered by compliance administrator role, that disqualifies it to be the answer, because its scope is on implementing and managing compliance. And our question is asking about implementation of Azure AD Privilege Identity Management PIM. So that leaves us with the answer as the global administrator role, choice N. So if I jump back right into the Azure portal, you'll see on my privilege identity management, I can go to my roles. Then I have eligible assignments. These are assignments that, for example, if I've been assigned by the global admin, that I can get to activate. Active assignments, these are roles that are, for example, I'd already been assigned by the global administrator and I've already activated them, and I only have access as per the access to the resources as per the policies that have been configured or access given by the global administrator. So this particular role is to give me access to particular Azure resources. So you can see, if I go to Azure resources, I can even see what sort of Azure resources I have access to with my privileged identity management scenario that have been provided by the Azure Global Administrator. So let's revert back to the question. As seen with the question 1, the answer is the global administrator role. Let's proceed to question 2. So for question 2, the question is including a number of questions that depicts the identical setup. However, every question has a distinctive result. So to establish if the solution satisfies the requirements, it's upon you to understand what the question needs. So we are going to either give a yes or no answer after doing a deep dive of what the question intends you to understand. So the question reads, your company has an Active Directory forest with a single domain named waylandindustries.com. They also have an Azure Active Directory Azure AD tenant with the same name. You have been tasked with integrating Active Directory and the Azure AD tenant. You intend to deploy Azure AD Connect. Your Microsoft strategy for the integration must make sure that password policies and user logon limitations affect user accounts that are synced to the Azure AD tenant, and that the amount of necessary servers are reduced. So, solution that is being provided, you recommend the use of password through authentication and seamless single sign-on with password hash synchronization. So the question is, does the solution that has been provided meet the goal as per the given question? So before we know whether the answer, the given solution is a yes or no, let's go to the Microsoft whiteboard, and then I'll explain on how the connectivity of the two ADs, that is the Active Directory on premises and the Azure AD on the Azure side, gets to happen, and what sort of authorization and for these particular users happens. So here's my Microsoft whiteboard. So we have two ADs here. So one AD is sitting on the on-prem. Another AD is sitting on Azure. So the AD sitting on Azure is what we call Azure AD, previously called Azure AD, but currently it's called Microsoft has revised the name to Microsoft Entra ID. Microsoft Entra ID. On-premise side, the AD side is what we call Active Directory. This is what we call AD. On Azure, it's called Azure AD previously, but right now currently it's being called Microsoft Entra ID. So in most situations, customers who want to approach the hybrid scenario of setting up their Active Directory or want to sync the on-premises users to the cloud or to the Azure cloud, what usually happens is that these two ADs usually get connected. So you'll connect this AD on premises to the Azure AD that sits on the Azure. So what will assist you in connecting these two ADs? It what the resource we usually call Azure AD Connect. Azure AD Connect. So with Azure AD Connect, when you get to implement it, you will be able to connect the Active Directory on-premises and the Azure AD. And as a result, as per the configurations that you've set here, the users sitting on-premises will sync to the Azure to Azure side. So there'll be that synchronization. So how does the synchronization gets to happen? So there are two the sort of scenarios that when we are configuring Azure AD Connect, will need to look into. One is, where do we want the authorization to happen? If at all we want the authorization, let's say a user logs in to your application that is registered with the Azure or with your Active Directory, when they get to log in, or when the user gets to log in, where is the point authorization? Is it ID or Azure AD side? If you want the authorization to explicitly happen on the on-premises AD, then you will have to implement what we call the pass-through authentication. So with pass-through authentication, when that user logs in, when a user signs into your cloud application, they don't get authorized directly on the Azure AD. So that authorization, it goes back to the on-prem AD and checks if that user that token is valid. And then if it is okay, it's transmitted to the Azure AD side, and then this user is given access to the cloud application that you've implemented. So with pass-through authentication, you'll have to implement what we call the agents. So there are agents that are installed on the on-premises servers. So we have a server, so you can even install these agents on more than one server. So you have agents on a server A, you have another agent on server B. So for this one, usually being done to ensure that if at all there is failure, the other agent sitting on the other server picks up the authentication and the authorization. But now here, you'll find that there's overhead of, because you have to install the agents on different, for example, different servers, and you have to bring in different servers in order to install these particular agents. That is if you want to go ahead and implement pass-through authentication. But there's another method if you don't want to go with this particular overhead. This is what we call the password hash synchronization. Password hash synchronization is that the authorization directly happens on the Azure AD, meaning this user, after the user has been synced to the Azure AD, the password of this particular user is stored on Azure AD. The password is stored on Azure AD side. That is the password hash synchronization. So meaning there's synchronization of the passwords of this particular user. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the password is stored here. It is the hash of the password that of the user sitting on the AD side that is stored on this other end. So they store the hash of the password. They store the hash of the. Our question states, your strategy for the integration must make sure that the password policies and user login limitation affect user accounts that are synced to the Azure AD Connect, and that the amount of necessary servers are reduced. So as we've seen, this solution, let's read the solution. You recommend the use of pass-through authentication and seamless single sign-on with password hash synchronization. These won't meet the goal. This is not correct. We'll go with a no. Why? Because with password through authentication, you'll have to introduce additional servers where you are going to install the agents. And as the question states, you need to reduce the necessary amount of servers that you need. So this particular authentication doesn't meet the goal. So so the answer here is no. So let's go to question 3 and see if the solution that will be provided there is the correct one or no. So question 3 is still the same question. as we've discussed on question 2, but the solution provided is sort of different. So you're the one to determine whether the solution is correct or no. Now, let me just reread the question again. Your company has an Active Directory forest with a single domain name waylandindustry.com. They also have an Azure Active Directory, Azure AD tenant with the same name. You have been tasked with integrating Active Directory and the Azure AD tenant. You intend to deploy Azure AD Connect, as we've seen. Your strategy for the integration must make sure that the password policies and user logon limitation affect user accounts that are synced to the Azure AD tenant, and that the amount of necessary servers are reduced. Solution that has been provided or suggested is you recommend the use of password hash synchronization and seamless single sign-on. So, what do you think is the answer before I provide the answer? Correct. If you say the answer is A, then you are correct, because in this regard, it's addressing the need of the question where they're saying you need to reduce the amount of necessary servers that are needed. With password hash synchronization, we don't need to install any agent on the on-premises servers. The password hash synchronization happens in a way that the hash of the password hash are stored on the Azure AD side, and so there's also that seamless single sign-on that you also get to choose when you're implementing Azure AD Connect, and so you don't have a lot of overhead when implementing this sort of authentication scenario. So the answer here is choice A. Yes. Let's proceed to the next question 4. So the next question here is going to address our second topic for the AZ-500 exam. That is the secure networking. So the question 4 reads, you have an Azure subscription that contains a storage account named Storage1 and a virtual machine named VM1. VM1 is connected to a virtual network named VNet1 that contains one subnet and uses Azure DNS. You need to ensure that VM1 connects to Storage1 by using a private IP address. The solution must minimize administrative effort. What should you do? Choice A, for Storage1, disable public network access. B, on VNet1, create a new subnet. C, for Storage1, create a new private endpoint. D, create an Azure private DNS zone. So I will go to the Microsoft dashboard and then try and explain what the question is needing us to address. So go to Microsoft Whiteboard, storage account. Remember, this storage account by default is usually being accessed publicly. You can that is the default access level for a storage account. But if you don't want to go over the internet and access this storage account publicly, you want to access it private using the privately using the private IP addresses. So what usually happens is that there are recommendations that are usually being provided by Microsoft in order for you to access the storage account privately. In order for you to access the storage account privately, there's usually what we call the Azure private endpoint. Azure private endpoint will assist you in order to access the storage account resources using the private IP addresses that have been provided. So from this understanding, Azure private endpoint is a fundamental building block for private link in Azure. It enables Azure resources, this is storage, Azure storage included even the virtual machines, to privately and securely communicate with private link resources such as the Azure storage that we do have. So when you want to communicate to this storage account, you want to think the IP. What we usually do is that access will be enabled for the IPs that you made you whitelisted. But again, there's a point where you get to disable the access from the public internet, public network completely. So what usually happens when you go to the private endpoints, you will get that when you're going to implement this private endpoints. So when I click private endpoints, so with private endpoint, so I choose the storage source group. I give the private endpoint a name. Let's say Jackson point private. Then so you'll see this the network interface name. There's a network interface that is created. So this network interface is where the private IP address is going to be assigned on. So this private IP that is going to be assigned is either going to be statically assigned or dynamically assigned. So you can see in this section, I can just say I need this target sub resource to go to a file. For example, I have a file share and I want to access that file share through private IP. So I can say go to the file share, to the file, and then when you come here, I'll select the virtual network that I need. I need these two, the virtual network that contain the subnets that we need to assign this private endpoint on. So when I select that, I can select, although right now I don't have the virtual network, but when I select that virtual network, it will select it, then I select the subnet. After that, you see this section, private IP configuration. I'll either choose dynamically allocate IP address, meaning it will pick any IP within the subnet that we've allocated for this particular private endpoint resource. Or we can statically allocate an IP address from that side range within that particular subnet. And then after doing so, we'll go to the you go to a DNS, and DNS you can choose to configure it or it's optional. You can choose to configure or not. But the best recommended way is you'll get to just implement DNS, and then you review and create, and as a result you do an NS lookup for this particular storage account, and you'll able to see the NS lookup result will give the private IP address that has been assigned to this particular private endpoint, and that is how you're going to access these storage account privately through the private endpoint. So let's revert back to the question. So the question was asking what the solution must minimize the effort, and what we need to do is to ensure VM1 connects storage 1 by using private IP addresses. So you can see for storage 1, disable public network access. We can disable public network access, but that is not it's a challenging answer. It's not the opportune answer, because you can disable, yes, but you've not made the access to happen to that particular storage account. B, so that disqualifies the answer. B, on VNet 1, create a new subnet. No, creating a new subnet doesn't necessarily enable you to have private access to the storage account. That automatically disqualified. C, for storage 1, create a new private endpoint. As we've seen, we are able to create a new private endpoint, and so the private access to that particular storage account will happen through this private endpoint that we've created, since there's a NIC that has been created and assigned a private IP address that we can use to access that particular storage account privately. D, create an Azure private DNS zone. No, this doesn't cut it, because as I've mentioned, when creating a private endpoint, you can choose to create a DNS. It's optional. Either create it or not create it. It won't affect the end result of accessing the storage account privately. Next question. You have an Azure subscription. You need to deploy an Azure Virtual 1 to meet the following requirements. Create 3 secured virtual hubs located in East US, West US, and North Europe Azure regions. Ensure that the security rules sync between the region. What should you use? So we have Azure Virtual Network Manager, Azure Front Door, Azure Network Function Manager, and then the last choice, Azure Firewall Manager. So before we get to know the right answer here, let's get to the Microsoft whiteboard and get to understand exactly what the question needs of us. This is what virtual one, and then with this virtual one is in form of a hub and spoke. Then you have another hub here. You have a hub, you have another hub, you have another hub this other side. So this hub could be, this one could be in East US, for example. This one, it could be in West Europe. This one could be in, let's say, Brazil South. Let's say, yeah. So to ensure that the traffic is being managed correctly within this particular virtual one, remember, within the virtual one, you'll need to implement some firewall rules. And what will assist you implement these particular firewall rules, in that you're going to implement those particular firewall policies, is a resource called the Azure Firewall Manager. It's what is going to help you manage these particular policies that are going to help you redirect traffic that is going to this particular different hub. So to secure your virtual hub, so these are the virtual hubs that we do have that I've drawn here. The virtual hubs, to secure them, you use the Azure Virtual Manager as mentioned. So you can create a virtual hub to secure your cloud network traffic destined to private IP addresses. So let's say, for example, Azure Platform as a Service and the internet. So traffic routing to the firewall is automated. So there is no need to create user-defined routes. So you have the Azure Firewall. Azure Firewall here, create Azure Firewall. And remember, the Azure Firewall is usually being attached to the VNet. It's before any traffic can go inside your network, it needs to go through the firewall. That's why this Azure Firewall usually sits on the VNet. So the first point that is being hit whenever traffic goes into your internal Azure resources, it first needs to go to the Azure Firewall, and vice versa as well. So the traffic routing to the firewall, as you've seen, is automated. So there's no need to create user-defined routes. And also the firewall manager will support a hub and virtual network architecture. So the things that you're going to create, all the steps that you're going to do here is, first, you're going to create an Azure Firewall policy. And then after you creating that particular policy, you convert the Azure Firewall hubs into secured hubs. Now, that is because you've already implemented this Azure Firewall, as we've talked about. So, at the core of Zero Trust, because with the Azure Firewall Manager, it's implementing the security in terms of bringing the aspect of the Zero Trust approach of the Azure Virtual One. You'll see, ensure that security rules sync between the regions. As mentioned, with the virtual one or the virtual hub, to ensure that the security is implemented, we usually get to implement the Azure Firewall Manager, which is Azure Firewall Manager meets the requirement, or it is the answer, because it's a service that provides central security policy and route management for Azure Firewall across multiple Azure regions. As you've seen, we have multiple Azure regions provided. This question is US, West US, and North Europe. So yes, on the features, Firewall Manager allows you to create and manage security policies and set up and configure Azure Firewall instances. So that is the functionality that Azure Firewall Manager brings on board. So I thank you for listening. This marks the end of our questions. So I would like to thank you all for attending today's class. And at 591 Lab, we encourage you to subscribe for more content. We hope you found the material informative and helpful. Remember, practice is critical to mastering any new skill. So review the course content and keep practicing with 591 Lab, help and support. If you have any questions or concern, please don't hesitate to contact us. We will appreciate your participation and look forward to seeing you in our future classes. Have a great day. Thank you.